thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So much welcome on behalf of our owners. We're celebrating their first anniversary, I think today, Jen and Greg, for owning this soon to be 51-year-old establishment. Thank you so much for coming to support independent books. My name is Michael, and we're here, of course, to talk with Nikkolas Smith, who's going to give us a nice demonstration. We will introduce him shortly. In the front, we have several books. A Hero Looks Like You, Wakanda Forever, Born on the Water, and of course, The History of We, as well as his other book that he came to speak for, The Artivist. So they're all available behind the counter, so go ahead and purchase the books and come back here and Nikkolas will sign them for you. We have Mary, Melissa, Bonnie, Paul, Kathleen, Elizabeth, and Trasa here. So welcome on behalf of all of us. We have so many of these books. They are so beautiful, as you can see. We're just so excited to have Nikkolas. Plus, he's just a wonderful storyteller. They call him an artist and an activist, which is combined is called an artivist. And so he's here to talk about it, but I'm going to let somebody else give a proper introduction. I'm going to bring out our kids' room teen queen extraordinaire, Suzanne Rorick, out here. And before you introduce Nikkolas, I want to ask you, what is so appealing about Nikkolas's work that attracts so many different people from wanting to buy his books, see his art?
I think it just speaks to everyone across the board. Just the use of light, the vibrancy, just like emotions that come off the page are incredible. But yeah, basically all of his books inspire us, like The Artivist, I Am Ruby Bridges, but I think the important thing is some of them, like That Flag, and the 1619 project, Born on the Water, really lead us to have hard conversations, but important conversations that need to be had. He's worked with Marvel to like shine a new light on a lot of the heroes of color that didn't necessarily get enough attention before. He uses Instagram to shed light on social injustices that a lot of people would like to keep in the dark, from George Floyd to current immigrant arrests, things like that. I think what he's doing is incredibly important, and he does it in such a beautiful way. His latest book, he goes back to the drawing board. He hand-painted canvases for each page. They're all gorgeous, and they're used to illustrate that we are all one people, and bring us together through art, music, and storytelling. That's what he does.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. It is an honor. I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing, and I'm so honored and thankful that you guys would stop by, and we can talk about some art today. We can talk about humanity. I usually will start off by asking the young folks to raise your hand if you're an artist. So raise your hand if you're an artist. Yes. You're an artist? Yes. And even all the grown folks in the room, I think everybody is an artist in some sort of way. I think everybody's creative. I try to encourage young folks to think about what is a creative thing that you love to do and kind of follow that. I've been making art since I was little. I've been making art, and so I just love to make any type of art that I could possibly think of. When I went to college, I went to Hampton University, and it's an HBCU and historically black college in Virginia. I studied architecture. I wasn't the type of kid to say, I want to be an artist when I grow up. I didn't really exactly know what I wanted to do, so I went to school for architecture, and I found out about a company called Walt Disney, and specifically they have a group called Walt Disney Imagineering that designs theme parks. And so I became an Imagineer after college, and for 11 years designing theme parks. One of them being Shanghai Disneyland. That was one of the main ones that I worked on. A lot of good times there. Also designing a tower recently for downtown Disney in Anaheim, Legacy Tower here, which is one of my favorite pieces. I also do a lot of movie poster design, just telling stories in one image, like Black Panther or Pixar Soul. Also, concept art is a thing that I love to do. It is like really at the beginning of a film project, they give me the script and they say, read the script. We have no imagery, we have no artwork, we don't know what it's gonna look like. And they'll ask me, what does LeBron James look like as a Looney Tune? And I have to draw. What is LeBron? You've seen Space Jam? Yeah. So Space Jam. I was the first concept artist for Space Jam. So there was no art, there was no visuals, and the concept artist has to figure out what is that gonna look like? What is that gonna look like? You know? So that, or maybe Shiri's lab and Wakanda Forever, doing concept art for what that high-tech lab is going to look like inside that million-year-old mountain, that kind of thing, or just concepts in general, just coming up with worlds, but mainly picture books. I love creating picture books, illustrating, sometimes writing, picture books that can span from like 3 years old to 103 years old, anywhere in between, whatever. Like, we can all come together around a story and talk about, maybe it's about current day things like, hey, the ladies who won gold medals at the Rio Olympics in 2016. That was my very first picture with the Golden Girls of Rio. And then I was looking at, hey, World Cup women, or my hair is poofy and that's okay. Stories like that. Superhero stories like Captain America, Black Panther. When I'm doing this timeline with the young folks, a lot of times I'll say like, okay, so this is current day. 60 years ago, maybe we looked at things like the civil rights era. So we're looking at, you know, Ruby Bridges. I have a picture book called I'm Ruby Bridges, where Ruby Bridges like visualizes that 6-year-old Ruby and as the first kid to integrate public schools, right, in America. And then I'll look at, hey, there's also 400 years ago, we can look at the 1619 Project and Born on the Water, and the beginning of America started largely in part due to slavery, and that beginning of the struggle for freedom and justice for all and all those patriotic things that we talk about, right? So looking at 400 years ago and a long time ago, like that was a long time ago, and then we then talk about 1,000 years ago, and then 200 times 1,000, 200,000 years ago. Right, so the history of we is actually a picture book that is set at that 233,000 years ago mark. This is the moment that modern humanity began. The oldest known modern human fossils were found in Omokibish in Ethiopia. And so what this says is that, the first modern humans, they say first modern humans because they were those old fossil skeletons are the ones with the same skeletal structure that we have, the same brain capacity that we have. These first people, they spoke sentences with nouns and verbs. They laughed, they cried. They were us, right? And so I wanted to make a book that talks about those first humans. This is my 10th picture book, my first hand-painted picture book. And I wanted to start really by talking a little bit about this author's note that I have in the back, where I say, this is not a fairy tale. This picture book is not a fairy tale. It is the story of your first ancestors. You, me, we. This book is a glimpse into humanity's connected history dating back to the inception of our original family tree. And so this book, it really is that connection to say, like, everybody on Earth can be traced back to her on the front cover. Everybody, there's a few traveling tribes out of Africa that populated the world. And so I definitely wanted to start by trying to figure out how I can visualize this story. So if you all are ready, we're gonna have a little story time. You ready? Okay. So the beginning, it starts off with this lush valley in Omokibish in Ethiopia, and it says, what does the beginning look like? In this fertile African cradle, the birthplace of civilization is found. Here, we dreamed and we spoke. We shared and we healed. We sang and danced and built and explored. We lived. Let us travel back to the start. So far back that all of our roots begin to tell the same story. The origin story of humankind. The history of we. We walked this earth not 1,000 years ago, but 200 times more than that. We wove nouns and verbs into a web of language that connected us. With minds as intelligent as those born today, we sculpted words that made stories and shared stories that made our community. A brilliant blueprint for all human beings to come. We were artists inspired by endless waves of field and sea. We questioned, what could this blank canvas possibly become? How many tales could it hold? With boundless vision, we painted wonder. We saw beauty not just around us, but within us. Bringing creative expression to our surroundings and ourselves, we crafted new styles. Drums and heartbeats in sync, we played alongside the chorus of nature's radiant choir. We orchestrated hymns and melody, music that moved us. And we never stopped moving to the rhythm. We allowed our bodies to be swept away by the pulsating vibrations of Earth's very soul, its heartbeat and our own intertwined. Humanity soared. We have begun to dance. Nature presented us with many gifts, but when obstacles arose, we became inventors to ensure our survival. At the mercy of harsh winds and rain, we needed shelter. Over time, house became home, our place of safety. We were architects. We learned the cycles of the seasons, the nourishing rains and the steady warmth of the sun. We called and the earth responded. With patience and reverence, we cultivated bountiful harvests. We grew. When our people cried out in pain, we examined every plant and documented every medicinal property. We healed. Communicating with the skies, we asked questions about our humble place in a grand galaxy of stars. We saw worlds beyond our own. We began to connect the dots. The rough waters felt impossible to cross, but we were curious about what lay beyond our shores. We began to wonder, perhaps these Nile perch are not the only ones who can river fly. Can we not try? We soon became one with the rivers and the oceans, and from the gleaming golden coast, we set sail. The seas were a pathway to dreams beyond. We were skilled, graceful, fearless, and fast as the flying wind. We explored. In our quest for the unknown, we found new horizons. And on those new shores, we built new lives, new languages, new inventions, new homes. Courageous journeys led to new firsts in our one and only ever-flourishing human race. From the motherland into every corner of Mother Earth, one group became many, became extended cousins, developing an array of diverse complexions and forms of prayer, became the first global population, became we. Thank you. That is the history of and the thing that I love about this book, it is a kind of like a National Geographic documentary. It is a slice of history, of all of our history. And so in the back of the book, you'll see the back matter that has a lot of facts, a lot of dates and timelines, and a lot of information. And I'll talk really quickly a little bit about some of the things. You'll see this map that talks about the out of Africa migration patterns. One of the very important things is that you start to see, okay, so 90,000 years ago, we stepped foot out of Africa, and you'll see around 50 to 60,000 years ago, we made our way to Southeast Asia and to Australia. And 50,000 years ago, you'll see a branching route into Europe. And 20,000 years ago, you'll see a winding route from Siberia down into North America, South America. And so you see explorers. I had never seen, you know, in my lifetime, explorers that look like me. And the fact is, we were everywhere for a long time. And so also just that concept of the first modern humans, you know, the reason why they're called modern humans, and the fact that, you know, they did speak sentences, and that they were very intelligent and they were innovators. I had to show, like, the first artist, the first, you'll see, like, here, the Blombos Cave in South Africa. And the beginning of the book, before the book even starts, you see I painted this artifact, which is the oldest known artifact that's ever been found in the Blombos Cave in South Africa, dated at, I believe, 80,000 years ago. And so I was literally trying to figure out how I can visualize, well, these are the first artists. When I'm talking to the elementary school kids, I say, you know, they didn't have a store to go buy paint. They literally had to crush rocks and ochre and mix it with water and make their own paint and start to tell stories on these walls. They literally were fashionable. They were fashion designers, right? So the Stilbae people of South Africa, these actual shells that you'll see here, I'm showing the kids, like, these were the shells that this paleontologist, when they discovered them, they saw, oh, these shells have been chiseled. Like, each shell has been chiseled in a specific spot, showing that there was braided grass through these holes, and they actually used these shells as necklaces. Like, they were designing things. I think that's pretty cool. So I wanted to show that. I wanted to show the first musicians who were doing things like using this little device that is called the woer, which is the first sound making instrument. And all the kids have these little things. So I'm like, do you remember this little thing that you spin it like this and it goes? That was designed over 100,000 years ago in Africa. And so I want to show them that. I want to show them, like, the, you know, just the braided nets that we use to make sure that humanity would be able to survive and, you know, catch fish and simple things to be able to become, you know, an existing humanity for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Specifically, I wanted to show the this scene in the Congo where they're starting to map out the stars. The Ashango bone, which is the oldest known calculator ever found in the Congo, dated at 45,000 years ago, where they were literally carving bones to have, like, a simple, basically like a math calculator, addition, subtraction, all these things. Looking at the phases of the moon, starting to figure out, why is the moon like this, and then it's like this, and this, and this. So I show the kids how they would actually, like, hold up the bone and chart that out. The first medicinal healers, this is the cave of pigeons in Morocco. So 75,000 years ago, they were going from plant to plant to figure out which one can I crush up to make an antifungal, anti-inflammatory paste. I think that's really cool. And it was a long, again, I tell the kids, like, this was a long time ago. Like, all these amazing things were innovated so that we could, you know, become who we are today, right? And so when I'm learning these things now, I look back to my childhood, and I look back to school days, and, you know, looking at the things that we learned. And a lot of times we learned about you know, the cradle of civilization and Mesopotamia and things like that were outside of Africa, and that they were about 10,000 years old. So that, if you can see that red arrow right there, is 10,000 years ago, and that purple bar is all of the stuff in the book that I just talked about. So everything from the art to the music to the dance to the survival tools, the architecture, agriculture, medicine, astronomy, exploration, all of these things were before the cradle of civilization. So my goal in this is to really formulate what I call educational justice. It is something that I feel like should be in schools, should be taught, even in communities. And so it's a very important piece of all of our history. Like I said, it is going back far enough so that it connects us all. And so it kind of, like I was saying, looking at that moment at the end there where you see all of us, you know, where you might realize that, hey, some of our ancestors went to a colder place with less sunlight, and so our skin got a little lighter, and some didn't, and that's totally fine. Like, there's really no reason that we have to be disconnected in any way or continue to split ourselves up in different races or whatever. We're all one human race, right? So that in essence is the point of this book. It is about what connects us all, the fact that we are all human, that the fact that we have done so much to be able to make it to this point in history. We are 233,000 years old. Happy birthday. And you know, we have to come together, right, in these crazy times. And so that is the essence, the purpose of this book. Again, thank you all for being here. If you have any questions, we can talk about it. Yes. Oh yes. So I will say the Leakey family. As I was doing research, I had to, you know, look up a lot of documents about just modern humans, the Middle Paleolithic era. So this is all of the Middle Paleolithic era. That is the Stone Age, right? So if you've heard about the Stone Age, and typically you've seen like cavemen who are dumb or whatever, but this is the Middle Paleolithic era. It is the time, you know, 200-ish thousand years ago to 100, maybe 50,000 years ago, looking at you know, how we innovated all of these things. and so there's a family called the Leakey family, Maeve Leakey, who she's like one of the premier paleo anthropologists in the world. So she has books called like Sediments of Time and all these different things that have all this information there. And the thing that I love about the paleontologists is that they just dig stuff out of the ground and they document what they find. Like it's a fact-finding mission. There's no sway in terms of like any sort of belief, or it's just, hey, let's pull this stuff out and this is what we found. And so ironically, after I finished the book, my publisher, Kokila Penguin, told me that the book would be reviewed and vetted by the Leakey family. So that was fun. I was very nervous. I thought I didn't know what was gonna happen, but they were incredible. They gave me the stamp of approval for the book. They also were able to kind of pinpoint a few of the dates, like, you know, 233,000 years ago, rather than just saying like 200,000 years ago. So all of this has been, you know, vetted, and it is very accurate to our history. So I was glad, you know, since this is kind of in a way that kind of like National Geographic slice of history, I wanted to be very accurate in that sense. So yeah, that's
amazing.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your childhood? Like you said, you weren't necessarily an artist at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, you did all kinds of different things,
Right.
but how did you hone in on that? Hey, I can do
Yeah.
this one.
So thank you. So I was making art all the time. I think it was just kind of that getting to the point where like once I got to college, I started doing, you know, political cartoons for the newspaper or stuff like that, making art about what's happening in the world. While I was doing architecture at Disney, I would just make art nights and weekends and just develop the digital painting kind of side of things. And so that just kind of helped me build up the confidence, I guess, to finally, you know, I left Disney right before the pandemic in 2019, and now I'm a freelance artist, you know. But I think growing up, a lot of times kids don't hear that, like, you know, if a kid says they want to be an artist, and then it's like, well, what is your real job gonna be? And maybe that's how I ended up getting, you know, directed a little bit towards the architecture, engineering. And once I, you know, the Disney theme park world is kind of a dream job in a way. But for me, it was definitely more engineering based, and it was, you know, construction documents and 3D modeling, and so it was a little bit more of that, and I wanted to do more, you know, sketching cool things, and I don't know, whatever was in my head. And so I think definitely kids, it would benefit from, you know, seeing a little bit more of, like, what does it mean, what are the different avenues of becoming a professional artist. There are so many different, you know, concept art or animation, those different types of things. And so yeah, it was just, I tell the kids a lot, like, I didn't go to art school. So once I was in the, you know, architectural world, I just had to find a lot of tutorials on, like, YouTube and stuff. There's so many things out there that will teach you anything. You know, how to be a speed painter. I do speed painting, so I had to look that up, you know, figure out, like, who are the best speed painters in the world, how do they create their art. And so that helped me to get to the point where when it was time to, hey, I'm working on Space Jam with Ryan Coogler, like, they need 20 versions of LeBron James by tomorrow. So it's like having that, yeah, like the years of speed painting or learning just how to create digital art was very helpful.
And then what came first, the writing or the art? Or did they
For
just
me, it was
sort
the
of
art.
blend it? Okay.
Yes, but as I was doing, like, the Sunday sketches, I do for 11 years. It's been one art piece every Sunday. So when I finish the art, a lot of times I'll add, like, a little bit of maybe a poem or just an explanation of the art, and that became kind of like the beginning of doing the picture book. So in 2016, once that opportunity came, I was like, okay, well, I can kind of tell a simple story that goes with the artwork. Yeah. Did you have a question? Hello, how you doing? All the other bricks. So this one is the Artivist right there. You can check that one out. And there's a Captain America one floating. There's a Captain America one, if you want to check that one out as well. And Wakanda Forever. I'm just gonna, like, set these out here for you. You can look at whichever ones you would like to. But yeah, there's a few there. There's a few there, and there's some more that I have on the internet. I can show you those. Yeah. Great question. Yes.
So obviously this book was done before all this came about, but in this era of anti-DEI and where they're, you know, trying to forcibly keep people from learning this stuff, what would you say that we can do to help?
Send my book to the White House.
Buy the book.
Buy the book, yes. Buy it, then send it to the White House. No, I mean, it's been going on for many years now. I have, you know, from 1690 Project to the Artivist to Ruby Bridges, you know, they're all banned in some parts of America, mainly Florida and Texas. And, you know, it's something that there has been a lot of kind of bright spots where there might be like a petition to have it taken down. What is it, Pinellas County in Florida, where the kids literally have to go and, you know, stand up for the book and vocally talk about how they want to keep it in the schools. And in that county in Florida, they actually kept it in the schools rather than having it banned. So there's a lot of good pushback, and I think it just takes more people speaking up for the books. You know, more amazing librarians who want to, you know, put these things and put these stories in the hands of kids. And yeah, and this one, you know, the history of we just came out recently, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of pushback it's gonna get, but who knows? We'll see. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think it'll be okay. Any other?
Do we have any other questions?
Are you married with a family?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
My wife is here, Vanessa.
Okay. I figured that baby looked like
And my
a great
manager.
one. Yeah.
Yes. And my son.
Yeah. I actually worked with that.
He's disappeared now that you.
Yeah, the Artivist cover is pretty much, that's my 4-year-old right there. So yeah, that's Zion right there. He's running around here, and it's been, you know, my wife has encouraged me to, you know, to leave Disney and jump out there, and it's been, you know, it's been an amazing journey being able to do all of this full time and tell stories, make books. We work from home, and you know, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this is my 10th picture book, and just being able to tell stories that I think need to be talked. Sometimes it's just American history, sometimes it's, you know, the history of humanity, right? But stories that need to be shared with everyone, so we can hopefully move forward as a society. That's kind of the goal around everything. Maybe it's art, just art to change the world, right? So with the Artivist, a lot of times it's talking to the kids about, like, so what is your artistic passion? Like, it might not be drawing or painting, but it might be singing or dancing or poetry or filmmaking. What is that creative thing, and how can you combine that with something that needs to be fixed in the world? And then that's how you make Artivism. And so we will do like Artivist workshops and things like that. So the books kind of range, but I love that they all do have that kind of same core principle of how we can move forward. And there's my 4-year-old. All right. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nikkolas,
Yes.
how much influence did Zion have? Because Zion was born before you did the Artivist and the story of we, and
Yeah.
just wondering how much influence your son had on creating work like you have.
I think my son, I mean, so like with the Artivist, that was really looking at like, okay, well, what kind of world is he gonna live in when he's an adult? Like, what world are we handing to these kids, right? And so that was the one, really the big one where I felt like it was at the time my most personal book. It has all of my Artivism put into those, 40 pages, and so it does look at everything from trying to clean up the oceans to climate change and social justice and LGBTQ rights and all these different things, and like what is that ideal image of the world that I would want him to be living in, right? And so the Artivist tackles all of those, what I call broken bones, of things that aren't working right in the world. He's been a huge influence on how I craft stories, how I visualize the world, and I love that I can do the kind of like, as I'm doing like the book tours and stuff like that with the bookstores, also going into schools, elementary schools mainly, talking to the kids about what the future looks like. And I've done workshops in India and China and all these different places, and all the kids jump in and they do the either the superhero portrait, like self-portrait, or they do the Artivist posters. So they all come up with, you know, brilliant ideas on how we can fix things in the world, right? So I love that, and yeah, it's kind of the inspiration for every day. You did good. Thank you for being there.
And how's like family influence? If they're going, Nikkolas, Uncle Nikkolas, you need to be writing about this, or you need to be doing
Yeah, I have a lot of family in Texas that, you know, they always just kind of. And so you know, they chime in every now and then, but you know, it's I feel like it's always kind of the same goal at the end of the day. It's like, how can we get more kids, you know, interested in, you know, making art to change the world, or how can we get more people talking about, you know, the history, the historical stuff that needs to be talked about that isn't getting, you know, is like getting hidden, right? So so there's a few different things.
Nikkolas Smith, thank you for not only reading the story of We, but for creating what you do, and more importantly, how you do it. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate